The appearance of this video in your feed is no mere coincidence. Carl Jung recognized such meaningful alignments, synchronicity, as powerful signals of profound unconscious activity. You find yourself here because you have navigated an ordeal that few manage to survive psychologically whole. Jung identified this necessary existential challenge as the final test, an intense confrontation with the deepest layers of the unconscious mind. While most individuals undergoing this trial mistakenly perceive it as a mental breakdown, a catastrophic failure of their own psychology, Jung offered a radical reinterpretation. He understood that this apparent collapse is, in fact, a breakthrough, the precise moment when consciousness shatters its old boundaries and advances beyond its former limitations. Your continued search, your restless need to understand what fundamentally shifted within you, confirms your success. The crucial realization now is whether you grasp the secret power this difficult passage has unveiled. Once you internalize Jung's insights regarding this transformation, every moment previously categorized as suffering is dramatically reframed as a necessary initiation. The final test rarely announces itself openly. Instead, it arrives cloaked in personal crisis, professional catastrophe, or emotional collapse. You may find yourself abruptly isolated from relationships you once deemed foundational. All former markers of meaning, career ambitions, social validation, the carefully maintained self-identity, suddenly feel utterly hollow and without substance. This is not clinical depression. It is, as Jung defined it, the withdrawal of psychic energy from external objects. Your unconscious is forcefully redirecting your focus inward because a fundamental structural change is required. The symptoms of this process are clear once you know where to look. You spontaneously lose all motivation to maintain the social masks that were once deemed essential for survival. Superficial conversations become excruciatingly unbearable, and shallow relationships feel profoundly suffocating. You cannot manufacture enthusiasm for pursuits that previously excited you. Loved ones, observing this intense shift, become anxious. They urge you to return to normal, yet they fail to recognize the core truth. You cannot regress. You have irreversibly outgrown the psychological vessel that used to contain your identity. This is not regression. It is accelerated growth that appears to be disintegration to those still living unconsciously. The profound isolation characteristic of this period serves a crucial, documented purpose. When external distractions and social validation are removed, you are ruthlessly forced to confront your actual self, stripped clean of the performative identity you present to the world. Humanity generally spends a lifetime meticulously avoiding this terrifying encounter, filling every silent moment with noise, activity, or the opinions of others. They circumvent the fundamental questions that only emerge in true silence. Who exists beneath these constructed roles? What do I authentically desire, distinct from what I was conditioned to pursue? Which facets of my personality are genuine, and which are mere survival strategies developed to deflect rejection? These interrogations are deeply unsettling, precisely because they offer no immediate, comfortable answers. However, developing a tolerance for this very uncertainty and ambiguity is the primary skill you are acquiring during the final test. Jung himself underwent this precise existential process, and his subsequent journey became the bedrock for his understanding of the final test. In 1913, at the age of 37, Carl Jung stood at the pinnacle of his career, Sigmund Freud's chosen successor, the undisputed heir apparent to psychoanalysis, with global recognition and a thriving practice. Then, his internal world collapsed. He was plagued by intense visions and began hearing disembodied voices. His peers suspected a psychotic break. Jung feared he was descending into madness. He severed ties with Freud, jeopardizing his professional standing, and entered what he later described as his 6-year-long confrontation with the unconscious. For half a decade, Jung willingly descended into terrifying psychological abysses. He meticulously documented this harrowing interior odyssey in the Red Book, a monumental work filled with visions, dialogues with inner figures, and complex illustrations of experiences sourced seemingly from beyond his conscious awareness. To the outside world, Jung appeared to be suffering a devastating collapse. He retreated from public visibility, halted his academic publishing, and dedicated himself entirely to exploring these emerging inner realities. While his wife Emma worried for his sanity, and colleagues openly speculated that he had permanently lost his mind, Jung was undertaking a revolutionary methodology that would redefine depth psychology. He treated his own psyche as a living laboratory, choosing to engage with the emerging unconscious contents rather than suppressing them with medication or denial. Through a practice he termed active imagination, dialoguing with his inner figures, drawing mandalas to give form to ineffable states, he allowed himself to experience insights and emotions that conventional psychology would instantly categorize as pathological. Through this exhaustive process, Jung realized that what the world perceived as madness was actually a natural, essential developmental stage. The psyche was fundamentally reorganizing itself at a much deeper, more complex level. He concluded he wasn't going crazy. He was achieving a profound form of psychological sanity that the majority of humanity never risks confronting. This is where Jung's account unveils the deep controversy that continues to disrupt conventional psychology today. While mainstream society labels Jung's experience as mental illness, a crisis demanding medication and institutionalization, Jung identified it as an initiation, the necessary psychological death and rebirth of the self. The final test demands the annihilation of the old identity, so a more truthful self can manifest. The core controversy is not the acknowledgement of suffering, but Jung's insistent claim that this suffering is inherently necessary, purposeful, and ultimately beneficial for evolution. While modern psychiatry seeks to suppress these experiences through pharmacology, Jung maintained they must be consciously navigated, experienced, and integrated. This fundamental disagreement defines the fault line between Jungian psychology and contemporary mental health treatment. When a person currently in the throes of the final test seeks help, they are often hastily diagnosed with anxiety or depression and medicated with the goal of restoring their previous baseline functionality. Critically, that previous functioning was the source of the conflict. The psyche is attempting a violent breakthrough to a higher state of consciousness, and medication frequently only postpones the essential transformation. The final test unfolds across 3 distinct psychological stages, each designed to strip away another protective layer until only the essential self remains. Recognizing these stages is vital for orienting yourself within the transformation and anticipating what comes next. The first stage is what Jung termed the withdrawal of projection. For years, you have unconsciously externalized your inner power, scattering it across figures and systems outside of yourself. You blamed others for your difficulties, deferred control over your self-worth to authority figures, and tasked partners or parents with the responsibility for your happiness or approval. In this first stage, these projections violently collapse. You realize your romantic partner is not your fulfillment, your parents are not omnipotent destroyers of your life, and your employer does not define your intrinsic worth. While this withdrawal initially registers as devastating loss, the loss of the comfortable illusion that someone else is ultimately in charge, it is the potent first taste of authentic power. You are reclaiming the vast reservoir of psychic energy previously dispersed onto external objects and relationships. For the first time, you are forced to confront the radical realization that both the core conflict and the solution have always resided within. No external savior is coming. No one can fix what you believe is broken. No one holds the answers you tirelessly seek. This realization is simultaneously devastating to the ego and profoundly liberating to the soul. Once projections have withdrawn, forcing you to inhabit your own power and responsibility, you face the second stage, the most challenging part of the entire journey. You encounter the shadow, the collection of impulses, emotions, and characteristics that you have spent your entire life vehemently denying, repressing, and projecting onto others. The shadow is the repository of everything you have judged as morally unacceptable within yourself. The unrestrained rage, the unapologetic selfishness, the capacity for cruelty, the unacknowledged ambition, the hidden neediness masked by fierce independence. Every disowned quality becomes painfully visible. The terror inherent in this confrontation is realizing you can no longer rationally deny the existence of these facets within your own being. You see clearly that your sharpest, most visceral criticisms of others were merely precise descriptions of your own disowned qualities. This internal visibility feels like an agonizing moral collapse. If these darker characteristics reside within you, manipulation, selfishness, aggression, how are you any different from the people you condemn? But Jung revealed a transformative truth. Integrating the shadow does not corrupt you, it renders you complete. The shadow is not intrinsically evil, it is merely unconscious. The repressed characteristics are not inherently destructive. Their destructive potential only manifests when they are denied and acted out without conscious awareness. When these shadow contents are brought into the light of consciousness and accepted as integral parts of your identity, they surrender their destructive power and transform into usable psychological resources. The repressed rage becomes the capacity for healthy boundary setting and self-protection. The selfishness matures into necessary self-care and the wisdom to prioritize your own needs. The capacity for cruelty transmutes into sharp discernment, recognizing who merits your kindness and who seeks to exploit it. Ambition becomes the drive for meaningful, authentic achievement. You no longer act out these qualities unconsciously, as you can now choose when and how to express them, rather than allowing them to erupt destructively when triggered. Shadow integration demands brutal, unflinching honesty about your own capacity for darkness. You must acknowledge that yes, you are capable of deceit when cornered, capable of hurting people when threatened, capable of manipulation and selfishness. While this admission feels like the irreversible loss of moral innocence, it is actually the genesis of genuine ethics. By acknowledging the fullness of your capacity for darkness, you seize the ability to make conscious, deliberate choices about how to engage these potent energies. You become responsible for your shadow, instead of unconsciously allowing it to erupt destructively under pressure. The third stage represents the most visible death of all, and the one that most distresses those in your orbit: the complete dissolution of the persona. The persona is the intricate social mask, the acceptable face, the professional identity, and the carefully constructed personality you perfected over decades to secure approval and evade rejection. You learned the precise script necessary to generate affection and belonging, developing separate personas for the office, the family, and social circles. But during the final test, sustaining the persona becomes psychically impossible. The requirement to pretend, the obligation to perform enthusiastic social rituals, now feels like unbearable acting. You might find yourself at a gathering, watching yourself navigate the room, observing the performance with acute, sickening self-disgust. In meetings, you become intensely aware of the widespread social games being played, including your own participation. People familiar with your previous persona become confused and often actively threatened by your transformation. They plead with you to revert to who you were, suggesting therapy or medication to restore the familiar personality. Friends may abandon you, family may accuse you of becoming selfish. However, the persona is permanently gone because it was never an authentic structure. It was merely a defensive construct, a survival mechanism tailored to a world that punishes truth. Once you have glimpsed the raw reality beneath the mask, it is impossible to return to unconscious pretense. You are left standing naked in your essential self, devoid of the psychological covering that made you socially acceptable. This phase is experienced as a social death, because in many respects it is. The recognizable version of you is deceased. Others must now choose to either accept the authentic person emerging or exit your life entirely. Following the collapse of the persona, when you are stripped bare, without your projections, with your shadow exposed, the conventional expectation is psychological ruin. Society relentlessly insists that raw authenticity leads inevitably to destruction. Yet, here lies the secret Jung unearthed that changes the entire trajectory. Passing the final test is not achieved by fighting the darkness, reconstructing defenses, or spiritually bypassing your humanity. It is achieved through the acceptance and complete integration of everything you have encountered. Integration. Not forced improvement, not transcendence that pretends to rise above human complexity, but integration. You do not eliminate the shadow, you accept it as a vital component of your complete self. You do not rebuild the persona, you learn to engage authentically while interacting wisely within social structures. You do not project power back onto external authorities, you claim your own, remaining humble about the limits of your knowledge. Integration requires holding the inherent tension between opposites within your psyche without collapsing them into artificial simplicity. You are capable of both kindness and cruelty, so you choose kindness consciously while acknowledging your capacity for cruelty. You are capable of both generosity and selfishness, so you practice generosity strategically while maintaining necessary self-care. You contain both profound darkness and transcendent light, and you cease the exhausting pretense that the darkness does not exist. This is the union of opposites. This level of integration forges a psychological stability rarely known to others. When you are no longer in internal conflict with parts of your own nature, you cease being thrown off balance by life's inevitable challenges. External chaos cannot fundamentally devastate you because you have already confronted the ultimate threat, your own inner darkness. Job loss, relationship severance, or public rejection still cause pain, but they cannot destroy the fundamental structure of your integrated self. What happens after you pass the test? Jung documented specific natural capacities that emerge in those who successfully integrate their unconscious contents. These are not supernatural abilities, but innate human powers made available when psychic energy is no longer consumed by psychological defenses. First, you acquire a radical, almost supernatural sense of calm amidst chaos. While others panic, you remain anchored, precisely because you have already navigated the underworld of your own psyche and returned. Second, your ability to discern authenticity in others becomes almost unsettling. You penetrate social masks instantly because you are no longer wearing one yourself. You detect deceit, manipulation, and hidden agendas effortlessly because you stopped lying to yourself. While people might label you as overly analytical, you are simply seeing the objective reality that others are desperately invested in denying. Third, you develop an essential immunity to external manipulation. Tactics involving guilt, shame, or social pressure lose their mysterious effectiveness. Since you have withdrawn your projections, external authorities lack automatic control. Since you integrated your shadow, your denied flaws cannot be weaponized against you. You are exceptionally difficult to control, a reality profoundly threatening to systems and individuals who depend on controlling others. Fourth, you are imprinted with an unshakable sense of destiny. This is not a belief in predetermination, but a profound internal certainty that your life possesses meaning and purpose, extending far beyond social validation or material achievement. You recognize that your unique intersection of gifts, wounds, and experiences exists for a reason, and you begin living solely from your essential, unique self. If you are still engaged with this content, if these descriptions mirror your lived experience, you belong to a rare cohort. Jung referred to those who complete this psychological journey as the awakened ones. a state he carefully differentiated from spiritual arrogance. You are not special because you are superior, but because you possess a level of consciousness that most people actively resist. Your intense suffering was not random or futile, it was intense training. Every moment of isolation fostered self-reliance. Every loss of interest in shallow pursuits redirected your energy toward profound depth. Every uncomfortable revelation about your shadow expanded your capacity for psychological complexity. Every time your persona cracked, you became irrevocably more authentic. The test was not designed to break you, it was designed to break you open, to shatter the limited identity suffocating your potential and force you to confront the fullness of who you actually are beneath all the conditioning and performance. You have officially passed the test simply by understanding this framework. Most individuals never recognize the transformative nature of their final test. They are medicated, distracted, or convinced to reconstruct their defenses, returning to unconsciousness with their psychological growth aborted. But you searched for meaning in your experience. You refused the conventional explanation that something was inherently wrong with you. You kept questioning until frameworks like Jung's explained your experience as fundamental transformation rather than pathology. This willingness to seek understanding rather than comfort is the hallmark of one who has truly passed. This secret Jung uncovered holds implications far beyond individual experience. Every person who successfully integrates their unconscious contents becomes a carrier of more evolved consciousness. You don't need to preach. Your mere presence operates differently in the world. People sense a fundamental shift in you, even if they cannot articulate it. Some will be drawn to this authenticity, recognizing in you a possibility they have suppressed in themselves. Others will be actively repelled, because your integrated state acts as an unbearable mirror, reflecting the inauthenticity they are still denying. Both reactions confirm that you are operating from a different psychological level than those still identified with projection and persona. You have completed a developmental stage that most human beings never reach. Jung believed this process constitutes the next necessary step in human evolution, not biological, but psychological evolution. Your willingness to face your own darkness, to drop your masks, and to withdraw your projections. These acts of courage ripple out, making it incrementally easier for others to follow. The most beautiful outcome of passing the final test is that you do not sacrifice your capacity for love, joy, or connection. The opposite is true. You become capable of real love for the first time because you are no longer loving someone to complete yourself. You experience genuine joy because it is independent of external validation. You form authentic connections because you are no longer performing for acceptance. Everything becomes more real, more vivid, more alive when you cease filtering experience through layers of psychological defense. Jung found that integrated individuals do not retreat from life. They engage with it more fully, unafraid of their own depths. They can handle the full spectrum of human experience, the ecstasy and the agony, the beauty and the horror, without dissociating or fragmenting. This capacity for wholeness is the gift the final test delivers to those who pass consciously. Your presence here watching this video is evidence that you have passed. You recognize the description of your own experience in Jung's framework. You understood that your psychological death was actually a birth. You are ready to claim the secret your suffering has purchased. Integration is your superpower now. You contain multitudes, and you are no longer afraid of any aspect of yourself. The darkness you feared is now your ally. The masks you wore have been composted into authenticity. The power you gave away has been restored to its rightful sovereign, you. You now inhabit the full spectrum of your psychological complexity, realizing yourself as a truly complete human being. This is the essence of Jung's concept of individuation, the profound process of becoming the authentic self you were always destined to be, stripped bare of collective programming and early life conditioning. The uniformity of the crowd no longer holds appeal. In fact, Your distinctiveness is precisely the objective. You have transcended the limitations of the collective unconscious, evolving into a being of greater rarity and profound internal value. Your emerging path will not mirror the journeys of others, because you are now authoring this next chapter from a place of deep self-integration, rather than relying on borrowed societal scripts or external expectations. You will find yourself making choices that appear irrational to those still operating solely from their social personas. You will establish boundaries that strike those who rely on power projection as excessively rigid. And you will articulate uncomfortable truths. Yet all of this will be driven not by malice or an air of superiority, but by the undeniable and simple necessity of refusing to live an inauthentic existence any longer. To fully cement the recognition of this profound transformation, comment below with the declaration, "I passed the test." Make this acknowledgement conscious, deliberate, and final. Claim the reward you have earned through your suffering and your unflinching willingness to face the very aspects of yourself you once desperately wished to deny. If this discussion has helped illuminate your experience in a novel way, please press the like button and subscribe for deeper insights into Jungian psychology and the critical journey of conscious evolution. Consider sharing this message with someone navigating their own crucible, someone struggling to comprehend why their world seems to be collapsing. Send them the crucial reassurance that what appears to be a total breakdown is, in reality, the precursor to an unprecedented breakthrough. You have uncovered the essential truth capable of reshaping your entire existence. The final test was never designed to annihilate you. It was structured to initiate you into that exceedingly rare echelon of individuals who possess complete and unvarnished self-knowledge. Thanks for watching. See you in the next dimension.